I will start with 3 questions and 3 answers. Number 1 question. Venerable Master Sayadaw, if one notes rising in falling, we won't be expected to be solely aware of the abdomen itself, rising and falling. Yes, indeed. In the beginning of the practice, one is simply aware of the abdomen itself. There is no problem in that. Enlightenment or Magga Phala is not expected in the beginning, of course. Even Nama Rupa Paricheda Jnana, the first and foremost insight distinguishing between mind and body, cannot be gained. In the beginning of practice, one has to work to keep the hindrances, wandering thoughts away by noting them closely. Only when the hindrances are kept away for quite a long time, vikamana, and the mind is free of them, we, a yogi, start to experience true phenomena involved in the rising and falling, such as stiffness, tension, vibration, and so on, beyond the plain concept of abdomen. This is from the book named The Discourse on Ariya Vasa Sutta by Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw. Number 2 question. Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw, can you mention suitable postures for sitting meditation? There are 3 postures of cross-legged sitting. The first is the sitting with both shoulders facing up like a Buddha statue. The second is with one calf kept parallel or one on top of the other. And the third is the way Myanmar women usually sit with their knees to one side, which is called Adha Palinka, half cross-legged sitting. Anyone is suitable for women. They can sit anyhow they like, unless in public. The point is to be able to sit for a long time, so that concentration will arise and develop. Eventually, resulting in insight knowledge. This is from the book named A Talk Given at the Yangon University by Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw. Number 3 question, Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw, is it possible to note an object, a movement, after it takes place? No, of course not. Even though you can buy something on credit and pay for it later, no credit is given in the case of vipassana. So you must note an object the moment it takes place, lest you become attached to it. This is the book named The Discourse on Basic Vipassana by Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw. Now, 3 questions and 3 answers. I will continue last night Dhamma talk. The instruction we give to our meditators is the Buddha's Satipatthana method. It is very simple. It requires us just to be mindful of all psychophysical phenomena that are manifested at the 6 sense doors. In the beginning, however, a yogi cannot note every phenomenon manifested. So we recommend them to start the practice with limited objects, just with the rising and falling of the abdomen, because as many dedicated meditators affirmed, it is the easiest object to note among others, and also ensures uniformity among the meditators. Of course, you can start with any phenomenon else manifested at any of the 6 sense doors. Nothing can be wrong with it if it is obvious enough to be aware of. So you can start the practice with the observation of seeing, or hearing, or smelling, or tasting, or touching on any part of the body, like head, leg, or any part else. You can also start with mindfulness of thoughts. I never mention any phenomenon as a round object for vipassana as long as it represents 5 aggregate khandhas comprising the mental and physical phenomena, nama, rupa. For the reasons mentioned earlier, we instruct meditators to start their practice with the abdominal movement, in which the air element prevails in terms of motion, tightness, or pressure. So, the rising and falling of the abdomen is all about air element, one of the 4 primary elements. The commentaries recommend us to start vipassana with the observation of 4 primary elements. On the other hand, we can start with observation of jhanic mental states. If we practice vipassana on the basis of samatha, jhanic concentration, but the vipassana we teach here is pure vipassana. So we are supposed to start with the 4 primary elements. Among the 4, the earth element can be experienced as hardness and softness. Try now touching something. You will feel hardness or softness. You can start vipassana with it too. In fire element is temperature, hot, cold, or warm. You may start with it too. And water element is wetness or fluidity. You can start with it too, if obvious enough. In brief, you can observe any phenomena if obvious enough. Yatha pagadam vipassana viniveso. Vipassana focuses on whatever obvious. According to the sub-commentary on the path of purification, Visuddhimagga Mahatiga, we should begin vipassana with what is obvious in symbol, but not with what unobvious or subtle. Practice of meditation is like the process of learning. We have to start with easy lessons, but not with difficult ones. In the monastic education, for example, it is impossible for us to learn Patthana. In early school years, how can a child begin his education with a difficult subject? The same holds true for the beginner meditator. The Buddha's Vipassana meditation is very simple. It can be just to be mindful of four bodily postures: going, standing, sitting, or lying. In this regard, the Buddha said as follows: Gacchando va gacchami pajanati. When going, he knows I am going. This instruction is so simple that some people doubt about whether it is the Buddha's teaching. If it were not the word of the Buddha, they would have rejected it outright. Yet they wish to argue even over the Buddha's teaching in trying to interpret it in their own way. Like an editor who extends the tale of Nange. Nange is a Myanmar character with a tail down. This idiomatic expression is used to indicate someone's eagerness to impress others. An editor, for example, is very eager to show off his expertise, but finds nothing to correct in the manuscript, and therefore extends the tale of Nange. They criticize that you would look awkward if you know going when going, and moreover, they said they would be aware of just in conventional sense, but not in an ultimate sense. Their criticism is exactly like extending the tale of Nange. The passage mentioned above is exactly what the Buddha said, which needs nobody's revision. If the Buddha had intended to emphasize the ultimate phenomena, that is, mind and body, then he would have said like Gacchando va nama rupanti pajanati. When going, he knows mind and body. In reality, the Buddha just instructed us. When going, he knows I am going. Gacchando va gacchami pajanati. I mentioned what the most venerable Lady Sayadaw said in his book called Anatta Jivani. Thus, when going, you have to note every step as I go, with the mind focused on the feet. Not a single step should be taken without mindfulness. Here, I go is the exact translation of the Pali sentence Gacchami, but not his own interpretation. While noting I go, however, you will become correctly aware of physical movement in the mind that generates it when your mindfulness is continuous and your concentration gets strong enough. That is why I just ask yogis to note going in a short form instead of the full sentence I am going. Similarly, I instruct them to note concurrently any activity they do, like lifting the foot, moving it forward, putting it down, and so on. This is the easiest method, requiring only bare awareness. When sitting, you may note sitting, but it would be monotonous or boring to note such a single object for long. As an alternative, therefore, I recommend you to note the rising and falling of the abdomen, which is obvious, easy to note, and not as monotonous. By noting so, I guarantee you can develop vipassana insight. Some beginner meditators and people who have overheard our talks are skeptical about whether this is the really effective way to the development of insight knowledge. Their skepticism is not surprising, since they have never tried this method, nor do they have any clear idea of what insight meditation is about. So they are practicing just by faith. Initially, they cannot discern psychophysical phenomena. not to mention to see them rising and vanishing, although their teachers said they would. So they began skeptical about the efficacy of the mindfulness meditation, Satipatthana. This means they arrived at the crossroads, wavering, indecisive, and hesitating to follow this method. This is the doubt that forms a hindrance to the practice. As a result, they stop developing the mindfulness and are thus disqualified for the abode of noble ones and have to get back to the house of common people, Uddojana, where they are unprotected. At this moment, if they were to die with lingering attachment to accessory object, they are most likely to land in the lower world, exactly like a monk who was reborn as a louse because of attachment to the robe. This is exactly like a trader who gets killed at the crossroads because he is uncertain and fears to take the right turn before too late. If you are skeptical about this Satipatthana method and fears to practice it, then there will be no chance for you to attain any vipassana insight, let alone Magga Phala in Nibbana. Thus, you will remain liable to be reborn in all four states and to suffer all kinds of woes such as aging, sickness, and death, and so on, throughout the cycle of rebirths. That is why the Buddha encouraged us to get rid of the skeptical doubt. Well, let's recite the verse in this regard. Doubt is the crossroads. If you are there, note and remove it. There is still much to be said about the hindrances to enlightenment. In short, all we have to do is just note and remove them as soon as they arise. Thus, our minds get purified of them, Citta, Visuddhi. They are barriers to mental development, bhavana, like shutting down the gate to Nibbana. Suppose, for example, there is a gate that is too narrow for 2% get through at the same time. And therefore, when one gets in, the other cannot get in or out. In the same way, when wholesome consciousness arises and wholesome one cannot arise, and vice versa, because consciousness, good or bad, arises one at a time, but not two or more at the same time. In the same way, when mindfulness arises, no evil thoughts can arise, and vice versa. Thus, our minds become pure through the mindfulness. When there arise hindrances, niranas, namely sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and remorse, in the skeptical doubt, there cannot arise mindfulness or any mental development. Then the hindrances will become very strong and authoritative, like commanding the spiritual development bhavana to stop. Hey, you, stop right there. This is how they hinder spiritual development. So long as there is a hindrance, there is no mental purity. The mind can by no means be purified of hindrances. If hindrances often interrupt the mindfulness, if you have ever practiced, you can understand it well. Many people do not meditate because they consider their minds are pure by means of wholesome deeds like the act of generosity, observance of moral precepts, recitation of scriptures, in worshipping triple gem, and so on. If asked why not meditate, they would reply that their minds are pure enough. They never do anything evil, never think of anything destructive to others' well-being. Nevertheless, they quickly realize how unruly and polluted their mind is when they take up mindfulness meditation. The time is up. Enough for today.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.